Today we're finishing off the Kalina Mini Wallet. This is what we're making, and so far I showed you how to cut and interface it on Monday. Then Tuesday we made the zip pockets, the credit card pockets and the keyring tab, and I also showed you how to make the flap. But today we are installing the metal snap for the flap and for the body. And I'm also going to show you how to make a wider flap with a magnetic snap closure instead. Now, Damiana, who designed this pattern from AppleGreen Cottage, has an excellent tutorial on her blog of how to install a magnetic snap to any item, including the Kalina Mini Wallet. So I've included a link to this video of how she does that, and when I read through it last night, she does it more or less the same way that I do, so I'm glad about that. So now, first of all, on Tuesday I made the little flap, and the flap is going to go on, let me just see how the flap is going to go. If I fold my outer shell of my wallet in half, my flap is going to go like so. So now we need to add a metal snap. Now I have this little gadget. It's quite heavy actually. It's called a universal hand press. I bought mine from the trimming shop. They're on eBay and they're on Etsy, and they have their own website as well. And if you're planning to make a lot of items with snaps, I highly recommend getting an item, a device like this. If you're only doing a one-off, occasional snap setting, you can just get a manual little tool. I don't have one handy to show you, but you can buy a pack from haberdasheries of metal snaps, plus the little dies, D-I-E-S, and all you need is a little hammer, and you can install a metal snap manually. But I'm not going to do any hammering today. I'm going to use my trusty hand press. So first of all, you take your flap, your finished flap. This has got interfacing inside and fleece. And I usually just fold it in half to find the center of my flap. And then I measure up 1/2 inch from that center part. So I'm just measuring up the center point 1/2 inch from the bottom, from the curved edge of my flap. And then we're going to take, this is just an ordinary hole punch. I got this one from Wilko's when Wilko's was still around, but you can buy these off Amazon or eBay. It's like a belt loop hole punch, really handy. And then you just punch through where you made the hole, where you left the mark. So I've made a little hole there. I don't know if you can see that yet. You can maybe see that. And then what I usually do is add a dab of fray glue as well, just because I'm using cotton. I'm working with cotton. I want to make sure it doesn't fray. So just a little dab around where the hole is. And I would usually let this dry a bit before carrying on, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to carry on. So just to show you, for the flap, you need to install the snap that has the smooth cap, it's like a little dome, and the socket. So we're going to be installing that side of the metal snap first. So I need my smooth snap side and then my socket. And oh, hopefully I can do this. It's a bit risky doing it at my machine. Hopefully my my extension table can take the brute force of my pushing my hand press. So you put the socket. When you buy these presses, you get different dies for different items. So for example, this smooth little die is for the little cap, and it just sits right in there. So you need to know, you need to make sure you've got the correct die for the correct snaps or whatever you're installing. So I've put the smooth cap in there, and then the socket one goes in the top die. And then you need to make sure as well which side of the flap is going to have the cap. So I want it to be on this side because I like the little flower there. So it needs to go on the side that you're wanting the cap, has to go face down so that the cap is against that. And you just ease it over the hole there that you've made. And then you can just, I'm going to have to stand, give it a good press. And there you go. So it's got the socket on the one side and your little cap on the other side. I'll go ahead and install the other side on the outer shell of the mini wallet. So if you fold your fabric in half, just to make sure you know which side you want to install your other side of your snap. My flap will be going there, so I definitely want it, I need to make my hole on this side. So just bear that in mind. And then I take my pattern piece, and as you can see, I've made quite a few holes in it. I make where the mark is to leave your hole, I position that over the outer shell. Hope you can see this. And then I just mark with my pencil, get my hole punch, right, and then just punch your hole. So, there, I've punched the little hole. I'm going to add a bit of frayed glue. This one that I'm using it's Aline's Stop Fraying Permanent Fabric Adhesive. I bought this from So Hot. So I'm just going to add a tiny dab. Right, so now I'm going to get my hand press back, and I need to change the die for the other side of the snap. So now we're going to install, I don't know if you can see, this tiny little stud. So that goes on the top of the die, and then we've got this longer piece, and that goes on the bottom. It kind of hooks on, and then I'll just show you with this one. So you've got your stud is on the outside, and then the other side is like that. Let's just position, whoops, I've lost it. Position it over the hole, stand up, because it's all in the wrist. You've got to you can't do this sitting down. Right, there you go. I've installed my little stud. Now, it's always a good idea to check that they actually do snap together, which they do. Yay! Now we're going to install a magnetic snap. So we're going to be installing, here's one magnetic snap, and that's, I'm all butterfingers today. There's your other side. So I've gone ahead and cut out a wider flap for another wallet because I wanted to feature this little birdie. So if you compare the size, it's quite a bit wider. And I've cut this out. I cut out a rectangle measuring 3.5 inches wide by 2 3/4 inches tall. And then I took the pattern piece to create those curved edges. It works just the same way as the smaller flap, as long as you center the snap in the exact same position. So I'm going to install my magnetic snap, but for this you need to install the magnetic snap on the lining of your fabric. Yeah, the wider flap is much easier. It's actually easier to turn out as well after you've stitched it. So I've gone ahead and added, for magnetic snaps, you need to add a bit more stabilizer to the area where you're going to make your slits for the prongs. So I've just fused a scrap of Decaville light here. I just had some Decaville light to hand. And then I fold it in half to find the center. And for this one, we're measuring up, I wrote it down, according to Damiana's tutorial, which I've linked below, it needs to be 7/8 of an inch centered. So let me just watch me count now with my ruler. Okay, let me just, 7/8 of an inch. Okay, so where's my center? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm one of those people that I still, I count with my fingers. Anyway, so I found the center mark, I found the mark, and now what I do is I take one of the washers, like that, and I position the hole, the center hole, over the mark that I've just made. And then I draw the lines for where the prongs will go. I don't know what I've done with my other washer though, because I'm going to need that in a minute. I'm slightly panicking there. Now you need a very sharp seam ripper. If it's blunt, you can actually cause your fabric to snag, and you don't want that. So then what I'm doing here is you gently ease it where you made the slits. I might just have another go on the other side. Oh, I hope I can get this right on camera. Right, just make the slits, just cut just enough. It doesn't have to be too much. You don't want to make the snap too loose. It's better to cut small and then cut a little bit more if you need to. Glue there. Then you we want the stud side on, well, they call it the male side, the stirred side of the magnetic snap. And you just poke that through the slits that you just made, and let's hope it works. Ha! So I've added it there, and now we just need to push those prongs down. But first of all, you need to pop the washer over, like so, and then you bend the prongs back on themselves. Now, I usually use pliers for this. Where could that washer be? Right, so I've got these jewelry pliers. They've got rubber tips. They're very useful for bag makers because they don't damage your metal. So I just flatten out the one prong like so, and then flatten out the other. I actually bought these pliers for making key fobs because I found I was damaging the key fob, the little metal part, when the crimped part. So there you go, that's nice and flat now. And then what I'll do is cover it again with a little bit of, I'll fuse a bit of Decaville light over the top as well. Just to let you know, and today I've got my ironing board right here. And I'm not going to leave my iron unattended. I'm just warming it up, okay? Not like on Monday. I was a disaster on Monday. So when you're fusing an area with magnetic snap. You don't want to fuse right on top of the magnetic snap, just around the edges, because you can actually, did you know, demagnetize a magnetic snap. And we don't want to do that. We want it to work. So I'm just going to press the iron lightly around the stabilizer. Actually, this iron is probably a little bit too hot. We could do it. Okay, so there I've gone ahead and fused that. And then you take your other side of your flap and place them right sides together. And add a few clips just to secure them in place. And then we're going to be sewing this flap at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is 1 centimetre, all around the curve. Make sure both sides are even. Actually, one side is maybe a bit longer than the other there. I can just trim that, that's all right. Okay, so now I'm going to just machine stitch all the way around, just around the curve, not the top edge, because you want to be able to turn it out afterwards. Okay, I need to get rid of this now. And I also like to sew with the side with the magnetic snap facing up, because I find that the magnet, if I'm sewing it with the magnet underneath, it kind of clings to my needle plate. Just need to change my stitch length there. Fraction. And remember to back stitch, and then just follow your curve. I was winding a bobbin before this, so my machine was set to the fastest stitch speed. And then just work your way around the flap. You might need to use a zipper foot for this part if the snap is too close to the edge. We're almost done. And then just check that everything looks straight and neat, which it does. Looks nice and neat. And now we're going to just trim those edges. Trim down your seam to about 1/8 of an inch. Is that 3 millimeters? And you can notch the curves if you like. I like the wider flap. It gives you the option of featuring a bit more on your flap and encloses the wallet a bit more. I should do it more often actually. I'm just going to snip into those curves but not go into my stitching. I don't want to cut my stitching. Just a few notches there. Then we can turn our little flap out. Now I have to say I tried a double layer of fleece with some of my flaps yesterday, because up until now I usually use 1 layer of fleece, but then I noted in Damiana's pattern she puts 2 layers in, and I did give it a go, but it was really, I mean it's effective, it works great, but really difficult to turn out a teeny tiny flap when you've got 2 layers of fleece. There's a real knack to it. So anyway, I'm happy with that. Look, the little birdie's there. And because we're using a magnetic snap, you're not covering any of the pretty pattern on the right side. So that came out neat and sweet. Now you need to give that a little press, making sure that you avoid pressing the magnet. So just give it a little press. I don't bother top stitching these flaps. They're so small, and really not necessary. You can, if you'd like, top stitch, if you really feel you need to top stitch around a flap, but you might need to use your zipper presser foot for that. So there you go, a neat and sweet little flap, a bigger flap. And that will go on the outside of this one. So now we need to install the magnetic snap. Let me just fold this in half. So we'll have the peacock on the back. And we're installing the flap there. So we need to have the magnetic snap on this side. And I've already gone ahead and fused some stabilizer on the back there. So now we need to install the other side, the socket side of the magnetic snap, and that needs to be 1 3/8 of an inch from the edge. So I'm going to center it, find my center crease by folding my outer shell in half and just finger pressing to find the center, and then 1 3/8 of an inch. One, 2, 3. Aha. You can just double check that by using this. That would help. Use the pattern piece just to make sure. So I've made my center mark. So again, you take your washer, and we're just going to place the hole, the center hole, over the mark we've just made. Take your pencil. Louise, where's your pencil? Okay. And you just mark where the slits need to go again. And then you take your seam ripper, which is there, and we're just going to poke through one slit and then just ease it along just a little bit, just to cut the fabric slightly, and then do the same with the other slit. I think I've added too much stabilizer here. That's quite a job having to dig it through. I might have to dig through that one a little bit. Small slits, you can always make it bigger afterwards. Take my anti-fray glue. We are on the home stretch. Once we get this part done, I can start the final assembly. Okay, then you just pop your magnetic snap through pop the prongs through. Aha. See, I've inserted the prongs, and now I need my washer, and pop that over the prongs. The back of a magnetic snap can be a bit on the sharp side, so that's why I like to fuse a bit of interfacing, a bit of stabilizer over it. Now we're just going to flatten those prongs with my pliers, and there you have a little magnetic snap. Does it work? We shall see. Aha! It works. Yay! Okay, let me just fuse some stabilizer over that on the back. Remember to avoid ironing directly on top of your magnets so you don't demagnetize. Okay, so we've got our outer piece ready. I already went ahead on Tuesday and attached the zip pocket to the credit card pocket lining, and I've also attached my keyring tab. But now we need to just attach the flap to the lining bit. So you fold it in half to find the center point, which I might need to mark with some chalk. Okay, so make a line. excuse me. Good glug of coffee. Solves everything. Okay, here's my little flap. And you've already got the center for where you installed your magnetic snap, but you can fold the top edge and find your crease there, and then you match it up. And let me just show you a little bit closer to the camera. So here are your credit card slots, and you need to center the flap where you made that center mark. So I've got my center mark there, and I need to center the flap there, and make sure, I'll check in a minute, you need to make sure that it's the same distance on either side of your flap. So I'll just make sure. Yeah, this is using the measurements from my flap, my wide flap. It should be 1.25 inches on either side. Yeah, that's correct. 1.25 inches of either side. Then you know it's centered. So I'm going to now baste stitch the flap to the lining. And this is the one with the magnetic snap. So the magnetic snap is on the underside. I need to do the same with my other snap now, and I might as well sew them at the same time. So you fold this one in half, find the center point, and fold your little snap in half. For this one, you need to, well, I'll show you now. Let me just check on either side. Now that's 1.75 inches on either side. It should be, yep. So for this one, you'll see the cap. It's a bit busy fabric, but you can see the cap is facing outwards, but the actual snap part is underneath. But Damiana's instructions in her pattern are so clear, with loads of photos and arrows pointing what to do. So I'm going to just baste the flap in place on both of these now. Okay. Where's my bin? And then the other one. And you shouldn't have any fleece, you shouldn't be sewing over any fleece at this point, because the fleece was trimmed down deliberately. Okay, so there's your 2 flaps installed. And now I need a few clips. Which one should be finished? Let me just actually, I'll finish the blue one. I like the larger flap, the demo. So there we've got, that's the the inside of the wallet, not the outside, the inside. And now we're going to attach it to the outside. So you need to make sure that your snap is in the opposite direction to your flap, and preferably not upside down. So I'll show you now. Right, so my snap on my body piece is on the zip side, and the flap is on the other side. And again, Damiana has really good photos to show you the step. It's a bit hard to show you on camera, but we're just matching up all 4 sides and clipping in place. Just have to install the clips all the way around, making sure that your keyring tab, the keyring is pushed towards the center. Ooh, and you also need to make sure your zip is part way open because you don't want to sew over that. So I've just brought the zip pull into the center. I can see this is already moving. So I need to just make sure it's all the sides are lined up. It's usually better to clip each angle first. That's 2 clips on camera. I need to buy some metal ones. If anyone knows where to get those metal clips, please let me know. So now we're just joining up the 2 layers and we'll see how it turns out. Fingers crossed it works on camera. I can see that clip's going to go as well. And you just need to check, look, on the other side, you can see what I've done there. I need to flatten that out. So you need to check both sides before you start stitching. Make sure that the fabric hasn't folded anywhere. A few more clips just to hold everything down. Gosh, I've just felt 2 other clips. 2 other clips are on their way out. Can you believe it? Okay, now I need to feel now where the keyring is. Where is the keyring? Oh, there it is. Push that keyring down. I was going to catch that in the stitching. I just told you not to do it and I'm doing it myself. Right. I think we're good to sew. And we're sewing at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is 1 centimetre, all the way around, but you're leaving a gap. So you have to feel where your ring is, and then know that you've got to have the gap on the opposite side to your ring. So you start sewing at one point. Actually, I'm going to start sewing about there, all the way around, and then I'm going to leave a gap at about there. Just, I think that there's specific measurements on the pattern, but I'm leaving a big enough gap to be able to turn the wallet through. It's slightly narrower than a hand-size gap because we're dealing with a smaller project here. So I'm just going to remove a couple of clips there, just reposition so that I know this is the side that I need to leave the gap on. I don't want to leave a gap on the ring side because that's going to be a bit harder to turn under otherwise. And then you just stitch all the way around, making sure you back stitch at the start and the stop. First, sorry, but I need my coffee from all the talking. Okay. And I'd love to know if you've picked out your fabrics to make one too. Are you inspired to make a Kalina wallet? Love to know. And then when you get to the corner, you just lift up the presser foot with the needle still down and then lower it again when you've turned the corner. So I'm going to back stitch there a bit. I'm sewing over here. Ah, it's the zip pull, it's moved. I could feel something was coming and I thought, what's that? It's the zip pull, so you need to make sure it's out of the way. Naughty zip pull. Okay, I'm getting to this corner. Keep the needle down and raise the presser foot and just pivot. And you need to make sure you go slowly over the zipper teeth. The zip I'm using has got very fine zipper teeth, so it's easier to sew over, and it's nylon as well. Make sure it's nylon. But some zips can be a bit bulky to sew over, and you might need to back stitch, and you don't want to go fast for this step. And now I'm getting to the part where the ring is. I can feel it with my finger, so I need to make sure that that does not move into the seam. And now I'm getting to the credit card slots, and it's a little bit bulky with all the layers now. Ooh. I can tell with this wider flap, it's a little bit thick. I'm going to check my stitches are straight, otherwise I'll go over it again. Okay, actually that looks all right. Now I need to just make sure I leave a big enough gap, so I'm going to stop out there and back stitch. Is that going to work now? And then just check your stitching on both sides, make sure it's all neat and not wobbly. Okay, I think that's okay. Thread everywhere. Now you need to take your little scissors, and I'll just show you what I've done here. So now I'm going to just cut into the corners, but without cutting into your stitching. Just cut your corners at the diagonal all the way around, because you want to be able to ease those corners out and make them as sharp and pointy as possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but now you might remember, if you join me on Monday, I explained that I'm not using fusible fleece for this project. I rarely get fusible fleece. I use a sew-in fleece, and I hold it in place with, see underneath this, that is the sew-in fleece, but I've fused some interfacing on top of it to hold it in place. But now for this step, I want to make sure I have fewer layers to deal with, so I actually peel back the interfacing in the seam, and I cut into that if I can on camera. I just kind of loosen it away from the fabric. Let me see if I can do this side just to demonstrate. I probably fused it so well that you can't do it. It's just a trick that I usually do to taper the seams a bit. I'll just cut into it. I'm not going to be able to do it this time. Actually, there I can. Let me see if I can do it there. I'm just going to peel back the interfacing from that seam edge and cut away, just to reduce a bit of bulk. Gosh, I really have fused it in place. But that's how I get away with not using fusible fleece, usually, though not today. And then I push back the seams. This seam is where the zip pocket is, so I trim that right down to about 1/8 of an inch, because it does get quite bulky there when you turn out. And make sure you don't cut into the stitching. And then you need to, well, I cut a bit of the zip away as well. One thing you mustn't do is trim where the gap is, because you need that extra fabric to turn under at the end. So you can trim up to the gap, but not the actual gap. I'm just trimming as much as I can to reduce bulk. And we're almost finished now. This is it. We're turning this through, giving it a good press, and then we can top stitch. Right. I think I've got all the layers down. Can you see what I've done on the top layer? I've tapered. So I've trimmed away one seam but left the other. Because if you trim them both to the same length, well, width, then it can actually make things bulkier when you're folding, when you're pressing under at the end. Okay, I'm going to risk it and turn it through. You reach into the gap you left and start easing it through. And if this doesn't turn out right, I've got a backup wallet that I can top stitch. Let me have some coffee. I know my coffee's cold by now, but today I'm definitely fueled on coffee. So you gently ease your wallet through the gap. And it's going to be so cute. I need my poking device. I usually use a little stick that comes with my sewing machine to poke through the corners. Stay. Okay, so you just ease it out with your fingers first, as best you can, getting right into those corners. And at this stage you need to check your stitching, everything's stitched nicely in place. Use all those corners out. Okay, so it's starting to look like a wallet. You need to just feel the edges and just decide, will your machine make it over those? Because there's always the possibility you have to reopen it and trim down the seam a little bit more, which I often have to do if I'm not happy with a corner. Okay, I'm just gently poking out those corners a little bit more. It doesn't have to be a sharp corner, but you don't want it to be round either. Okay, we now need to iron this. Let me just lower my iron a bit. So I'm going to give it a good press. It's looking pretty. There's the other side. I've got a peacock there as well, so it's really pretty. And you can see that that's my hole. I need to now fold that under, press that under. And let's just check it's going to close nicely. Please close nicely for me on camera. Please. Hey. So it's coming together, just one last bit and we're done. One last bit. You would usually use a pressing cloth at this point. So I'm just gently patting my iron. I'm patting. I'm not pressing, I'm patting. But only because I don't have my pressing cloth here to make a firm. And I'm just making sure that I'm pressing it as best I can, both sides, avoiding the magnet. But also I find if you press too much over the zip area, you can cause it to mark the other side of your fabric. You've got to be so careful. Because you've come this far, you don't want to go and ruin your wallet. Ooh, I feel like I'm having a facial here with all the steam. Ooh, ooh. Okay, so I've given it a good press. It's looking better. Now I need to fold under, roll under and fold under the seam where you left that gap. Can be a bit tricky for the credit card side. What's useful to do is warm up your ironing board a bit before, just so that it's hot to touch, not scalding hot, so that you can manipulate your seam under. And then I'll do the other side. The other side should be easier. If you just finger press it and then press it with your iron. Okay, and then once you've pressed under each side, you can give it a good press to make sure they are aligned. And then check the other side, the outside, to make sure it's all even. Give that a good press. Okay, it looks good. I think we're okay to start top stitching now. So I've just got that loose thread there and another loose thread there. I'm going to grab a couple of clips and I'm going to be top stitching from the pocket side. Just putting in a couple of clips to hold those in place. Check it's even. Let me just move this out of the way. Let me just sit down. Oh. Oh. This is hard work. Okay, so now I'm going to start machine stitching, top stitching, but from this top angle, so the side where the gap is, but I start from the corner, and you make sure you back stitch, and you're going to work your way all the way around, down this side, making sure your zip's still open, down this side, and then the last side needs to meet up with your initial stitching. That's what I'm going to do now, and I hope it works. Fingers crossed. Just position your needle at that top corner. I'm going to set to a shorter stitch, just a back stitch, just to make sure I've secured it well. And then I'm going to lengthen my stitch afterwards. And just go slowly, work your way around and as straight as you can. Just go slowly over your thicker layers, but it's not too thick. As I've said before, Damiana has really made sure that there are as few bulky seams as possible in this project. It is domestic machine friendly, like all of her patterns are. In fact, I could just mention at the moment, while I'm sewing around this, that Damiana has launched a brand new pattern today. It's a beautiful bag pattern called the Lumira. Really pretty bag, and it looks like it's on offer as well on her website. So you need to go and have a look at that. And you can also, while you're at it, join her Facebook group. If you look up AppleGreen Cottage Sewing Patterns and find Damiana's group, because it's a lovely, supportive and friendly group as well. And go and check out her new shoulder bag pattern, because I think it's going to be a hit. It's very stylish and perfect for the changing season. And I personally can't wait to make one. Okay, I'm on the third side now, just top stitching. Be careful over those zipper teeth. One thing I didn't check. Oh, I've got enough bobbin thread. Oh, I actually wound up another bobbin before I started the session, just in case, because I thought it's pushing it, but I think we're going to do it. And then just make sure you move the keyring out of the way. Okay, I'm now going to join up with my first stitch line, and I'm going to shorten my stitch length. I want to make sure that I can marry up those stitches. And back stitch, I usually do a couple of back stitches on the one side, and then I pivot and do another couple of stitches to reinforce. I've done it, and it looks lovely. Okay, I'm just going to trim those threads. I'm really happy with that. I might have backstitched a little bit more than I needed to there. So I've got a few more stitches than I need. I'll probably sort that out afterwards. But my wallet is finished. Yay! Okay, let's see what this looks like now. I could probably do with giving it another press, which I'll do in a minute. But we've got the inside, you've got your cute little zip pocket, and then you've got a slip pocket underneath for banknotes, folded up or receipts, and then you've got 3 pretty credit card slots which you can double up with cards. You've got your key ring. When you fold it, I usually do give it a good press when I folded it, just to get the shape right. Thanks, Damiana, for your support today. And thank you for letting me collaborate with you on this. It's been fun. You know how much I love your Kalina wallet pattern. And there you go. One cute little wallet, all done, ready for my craft fair. And this is one of the patterns that I love making for my craft markets. I've given a link as well to this video of my top 10 go-to patterns for craft markets, especially for the festive season. They always go down a treat on my table. And a little wallet like this can be a real conversation starter. I have a bowl of them on my table and people go, "Ooh, look at this." And I say, "Oh, feel free to open it." And they open it, "Ooh," and you know, then they start thinking, "Oh, I wonder who I could get that for." You know, and it's a really lovely, super little pattern to make. So I've given a link in the comments to my blog post as well for my top go-to patterns for Christmas craft markets. Check it out. I hope it's inspired you to have a go at making the Kalina wallet yourself. And make sure you go and check out Damiana's website for her patterns. She's got some beautiful patterns and she's got a new one out today. And I'd love to see your mini wallet makes. And I need to finish off a few now. I'll show you what I've got. The Lady in the Lake one. This is probably my favorite fabric, and I managed to place her perfectly on the slip pocket inside. And then she's also on the outside. Love this fabric. And I've given it a pretty pink for the credit card slot. So I need to finish that one off. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye.